Welcome to this week's episode, Run Your Race. In this episode, Jeff and Erin turn the mics on themselves. No guest, no borrowed framework. Just two leaders being honest about what they wish they knew earlier, what they got wrong with confidence, and the lessons that only showed up in hindsight. If you ever felt like you're performing certainty instead of building it, this one's going to hit close to home. In my 20s, I knew nothing and was terrified for anyone to know it. In my 30s, I felt like I had more value, but I didn't feel like I had the authority to share it. And in my 40s, I am confident in the things I don't know, and I am absolutely convicted in the things I do know. Highly Adaptive is a podcast where staffing and consulting leaders learn to outpace change. Hosted by Jeff Pelliccio and Erin MacKenzie, they'll cut through the noise to bring you practical moves you could use right now to grow, adapt, and lead. Here's something most people won't admit out loud. There's a version of you from 10 to 15 years ago who was absolutely certain they had it all figured out. They were moving fast, they were confident, and they were wrong about a lot of things that really mattered. Today, Erin and I are turning the mics on ourselves. No guest, no framework borrowed from someone else's experience. Just two people who have spent enough time leading, failing, and figuring it out to have something worth saying to the younger versions of ourselves, and maybe even to you right now. This one's a little different. It's going to be honest, a little uncomfortable in the best way, and probably funnier than any of us really think it should be. Grab a coffee, or if it's the afternoon, maybe a drink, no judgment. But let's dig into this and kind of see where it takes us.
Wait, I get to grab a drink, Jeff? This is going to be great. I love this. I love it when you get an excuse to grab a drink while we're having some fun here.
I love it.
I'll let you guys kind of in on where this really came from, because Jeff and I always plan what's our upcoming podcast, what are we going to do, and what should be our themes and topics. And I was telling Jeff about this social post I was doing about, hey, things that I wish that I told my 20-something-year-old self. And what I would do then versus now. So what's our story? And then that sat with me for a bit because there's so much content out there about what leaders should do, as we all know, and not really enough about what we would undo or what we really would have told ourselves. So today we're doing something that we probably should have even started with when we were first kicking off our entire podcast very early on, but we're going to get a little bit more personal. And what would we tell ourselves if we could go back in time? This is a time when there was no text messaging on cell phones, a time where thankfully social media was not even existent yet. But we're going to really go back and we're going to dive into the honesty, the questions, and would we even listen to probably the answers that we're going to talk about and what we would have told ourselves? Because I know I didn't listen to the advice that was given to me, except there was a few key things that did change my way. So we're going to dive into kind of all of this stuff of what would we have told ourselves. And I don't know, let's get into this, Jeff. This could be fun. We're going to learn a lot about one another here.
I'm both excited and terrified at the same time.
You probably do need a drink for this one.
I may have. All right. So if we're going to sort of move into this topic, why don't we first start with the image of who we were in our early to mid 20s? You know, something that kind of really encapsulates where you were mentally and kind of like how you sort of viewed the world. So why don't you go ahead and give it a start? Like, where were you in that early to mid 20s? And what was your kind of outlook? What was your perspective?
I quit my job. That was a good job working for Anheuser-Busch. I was their first female sales rep ever. And there was a skydiving drop zone across the street. And some skydivers landed in our backfield that we had. And so here's my outlook. I literally quit my job and became a skydiver and wanted the free-spirited life. And I had no true direction until one phone call that I'll get into here in a minute. But I thought freedom was what I wanted in my 20-year-old self. I had no clarity. I had no what's going to be me in 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, where I am today. And I decided I needed money in order to skydive. So I also, which some of you will not know, I also was a bartender at a biker bar in Daytona Beach. So that was, I lived moment to moment. I didn't have clarity at all in those moments at all.
That is.
What about you? Where were you in your 20-year-old self? I don't even know if you knew this.
That is remarkable. That's remarkable. So there are some similarities, but there is a very big difference. So let's start with the similarities.
You weren't at a biker bar, Jeff?
I was a bartender at this little dive bar that did have bikers that showed up to it and a motel that wrapped around the back. I was at the absolute dive bar. So I did used to bartend, but that was in addition to the fact that I had put myself through college, had a condo, was trying to buy a house, and working full time in corporate America. I think that where I was in my head, much of our lives are molded by the people who are around us. And up until that time, you're really molded by, perhaps family, friends, colleagues, whatever. And much of what I believed security to be was to get yourself established at a large organization, run it for 30 years and retire, hopefully, and whatever, right? It was kind of ingrained at a very young age. So in my early to mid 20s, I was trying to get everything in place. And when I mean everything in place so that way I had a more predictable result in the end. I was really trying to force the road that I wanted to travel down.
Interesting.
Which, just spoiler alert, does not typically work out too well. But that's where I was mentally. I thought for sure.
Yeah, because it's interesting because I had similar, definitely, I guess I went against the grain because my parents, my dad retired as a firefighter, joined the department early on, retired from there. My mom was an x-ray tech, worked at the hospital, retired. They all had the same jobs over. I had multiple jobs. And I went against, they're like, oh, you should be at one job and strive to get up to the top. Well, I was at Anheuser-Busch. I realized that skydiving was where I wanted to be in that moment of time. And then I took that chance and I was spontaneous because my entire life up to that point, I was a D1 softball player. I tried out for Team Canada and was one of the last cuts when I was 16 years old. And so I had a super, super structure and I was looking for something that allowed me to change in that moment. And then I had a brief, a realization of spontaneity can show up in different ways, but probably not necessarily in the fact that you should quit your job and become a skydiver. But you can be spontaneous in work. And I think that it helps. So if I was, there was a moment in my life early on that was a phone call. I met someone that helped me get onto the path I'm at today, which allowed me to start truly my professional career. And then I want to dive into things I would have told myself once I actually got into that professional side. Because were you always striving to be within the corporate America, checking all the boxes, making sure you were where you were at?
Yeah. Out of the gate, good boy. You know what I mean? I was the younger of two siblings. I saw the world around me. I tried to learn lessons from the people that I saw through their experiences, and then tried to make decisions that would really put me into a circumstance that would end in a better result. And so, which is crazy, right? Even just the mere thought of where it is that I started in this entire journey of my professional life, getting to a point where I'm now running my own company. This was very much not supported as I was growing up. It was, if you wanted to survive, if you wanted to do well, if you wanted to have security, you do not work for yourself. And again, these are sort of those early stage where you're so impressionable. You take those things to heart, you carry them with you your entire life. So I find it really, really fascinating when I do look back at my life, see where I am today, and how different that is from the lessons that I was taught or instructed at those earlier moments. It's really wild.
It's interesting because my career path is totally different than the rest of anyone in my family.
Right.
Like completely different. Okay, I have something I want to ask you.
Yeah.
When you were, because you started pretty early on, you followed the grain. You looked at, this is where I want to be. I want to buy my house. I want to be in this profession. I got to do this. Da, 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 da. I'm speaking really fast because it was probably fast paced back then. I mean,
Sure was.
is there a moment in your professional world, in your experience back then, that you felt confident, like in your workspace, and where you felt that you could like walk into a room and you just had this like level of confidence as you were trying to work your way up to the top?
Funny. No, absolutely not. Never. Not once.
Really?
In fact, so like when you look at my life on paper, right? Like I bought my first condo when I was 20. I was like, I put myself through college and paid my own way. Like I did all these things. And like, so when you looked from the outside looking in, like you would think like, oh man, this person has all their shit together. They've got all their ducks in a row. They're always in the right room. They're always, it's always resulting in something that others might want.
Yeah.
But when you're living the experience, there's so much doubt. There's so much that you don't know. And I was vividly aware of how much I was unaware of. So I always kind of put it into this category. Like in my 20s, I knew nothing and was terrified for anyone to know it. In my 30s, I started learning more of those things. Like I felt like I had more value, but I didn't feel like I had the authority to share it. And in my 40s, I am confident in the things I don't know, and I am absolutely convicted in the things I do know. And like it's in that sort of transition that you really start changing some of your decisions as you get older, as you get more experience. But man, in my 20s, I thought I was making all the right decisions to move down the path that I wanted to go. But I will also say, like, I was also served up the reality that like life doesn't go the way you want. Life goes the way it wants. Right. So,
and every choice matters. You make these different choices, which takes you onto these different roads for sure.
How about you? How about you with your like in those early stages? Because I mean, if you've moved from like corporate America, right, which, that's a large organization, Anheuser-Busch. So in moving from corporate America into, this very free form lifestyle, which is wildly exciting. I did also consider getting my skydiving certification out of Florida. So I get it. But like, where were you in that process mentally?
I had like a false sense of confidence, and I'll correct. So I worked for a division of Anheuser-Busch. It was one of their it was called Quality Brands. So it was they were an affiliate of Anheuser-Busch. So we still, I got a lot of beer in those days. They called me the Budweiser girl. I'm not even going to lie. Back in that, before I quit, and I got called Budweiser girls for many years after that as well. But I had like a false sense of confidence because you have to have a certain sense of confidence in yourself in order to A, jump out of a plane. B, it taught me that I had to be aware of my surroundings, because when you are skydiving, you have to think about where are other potential people that just jumped out before you, after you, where like you have risk elements. We learned a lot about risk and like, hey, if your chute opens and your lines are twisted, how do you get out of that? What are you going to do in that situation? It is fast. It's immediate. You have to think on your feet at that point. You have to be very strategic in what you're doing so you can get your lines untwisted, so you can have your parachute completely open to allow you to actually land softly and safely. So I did do skydiving for some time and just did that and the bartending. But like I said, I had this kind of false sense of confidence in where I was going. And I realized that that skydiving was not for me forever. This world of free form fluidity and let's just do whatever we want at any point in time. It was great. It taught me a lot of lessons of I want to get back into structure and have a professional side. And it's interesting because I got a phone call. I think my journey into the professional space, I'd thrown it out there to the universe saying, I want to get back into it. But it was the Sky Fossil, That was what we called him. And Norm Olson, he was in his 80s and still a skydiver around that time. And I was telling him, I was like doing a skydive with him. I was like probably 22, 23, right? I was doing a skydive with him, and I was telling him that I want to get back into the professional world. And he's like, Erin, my daughter works up in Virginia Beach. Now I'm in DeLand, Florida at this point. Works in Virginia Beach for paychecks. Let me call her right now. So literally, we just jumped like 12,000 feet up, got down to the ground. He grabs his cell. He calls his daughter and says, hey, Chris, I've got this girl, Erin MacKenzie. You got to meet her. You got to talk to her. Put me on the phone with his daughter. And that started my journey. She's like, I don't have something, but Delane Chowan in Richmond, Virginia does. Let me connect you with him. And literally from that day, 3 weeks later, I was moving to Richmond, Virginia to start my professional career. So it told me that even then, you got to take the phone calls. You got to take the risk. You guys don't have to necessarily jump out of a plane to take that risk, but that allowed me to, jumping out of a plane allowed me to find that risk and allowed me to get back into that professional side. And I was nervous as all hell broke loose when I moved to Richmond. New career, new profession, new people, not knowing anyone. And I had major false confidence in myself and tried to portray myself like I did have confidence, but I did not.
You know what's fascinating though, right? So in our lives, if I were to compare the two scenarios, you needed to be able to be quite authentic in your jumps, right?
Yes.
So in terms of like, you know, the old expression, like fake it till you make it, like there isn't a lot of successful skydivers who have faked it till they made it, right? Like if you are faking it, you're probably not making it, right?
No, you're right.
So there's a certain level of authenticity that would have to be present in that space. So on your side, your ability to, quote, fake it till you make it was relatively limited, forcing you to be probably wildly authentic, which created really good rapport with this, what did you call him, a sky fossil? I feel like we
called him the sky fossil.
Does he know that he was called the sky fossil?
He does know he was. Unfortunately, he passed away quite a few years ago now, but he was like my like pivotal point in my career of defining where I am today. But yeah, sky fossil. And even his kids knew he was called the sky fossil.
Oh my God. I love it. So, but in that situation, you have to show up as being quite authentic. And so if there's something you don't know, you have to also be willing to get the advice and the information on it. Where conversely, I wasn't jumping out of a plane. And so I thought that I could do a good job of faking it till you make it. The trouble is that with experienced people around you, it doesn't matter how good you think you are at faking it, they know. And so
correct.
You would be so much better served instead of, quote, faking it till you make it. You'd be so much better served in your career path if you simply were authentic in that space. Now, you don't want to be needy, right? Like, let's not go too far on the other side with that pendulum. But like, I think that had I been perhaps maybe a little bit more authentic about where I was in that moment, if I had a bit more of that clarity like I have today back then, I think that my rapport, my connections, my efforts, I think that would have been probably nurtured a bit more and allowed me to maybe I could have seen like different paths open up for myself. But I think that again, in that moment, that mental framework, you're terrified of sharing with people that you don't know something. And so you're driven to offer a solution in a reactionary fashion. I just didn't have the risk associated to those decisions like you would have. So I find that very fascinating. Like your environment may have actually like taking that leap of faith, no pun intended, but taking that leap into skydiving may have given you a skill set. Unintended consequence would be a skill set. If I'm honest, it's like, I feel like that's the person that I met in Boston when I met you. Like you are super like authentic. Your connection, your human connection is amazing. Like your ability to, I don't know, move through time and space with others is something I admire. And so like, I do wonder if maybe that's this like skill that you developed this muscle back then that you then get to continually exercise over and over and over again. And it becomes almost like your superpower.
I've never thought about it like that, but I think that's something, it has a lot of truth to it because it definitely taught me so much. I was a sponge because I had to be a sponge because I had to learn from others to be successful and not kill myself, essentially. Was like, I'm not saying that like you guys I mean, I needed to know how to pull a chute so I could like not land into the ground. You know what I mean? And get myself out of risk situations.
Soft landing.
That's where we're going. But it's true. I think it has taught me a lot. And I mean, I value communication. And that was my major in college. And the power of connection and where you can be your authentic and real and true self and just open up, you get so much more out of people. And I mean, Casey J. Cox always says like his book is Win the Relationship, not the sale, not the deal. Win the relationship, not the deal. And it's about winning relationships because when you win relationships, you learn so much more about others. So like when I'm like thinking through this, I mean, Norm or Sky Fossil was a super strong professional. Well, he was a personal relationship that turned into a professional, long-lasting career. Yeah. And it was amazing the opportunity that it opened up for me because then I was able to really kind of do things differently. And I think like for you, Jeff, I mean, I look at like your prescriptive way of what you felt that you need to do. I think that's helped truly shape who you are. And it's given you the ability to start your own company.
Yeah.
I mean, because you had to be methodical on how you were going to start it, even though something triggered you in order to say, I'm starting this now. Those key skills of, I'm going to buy my condo by the time I'm 20. I'm putting myself through college. I think that's helped you in your growth path of where you're at and help you start your business without even realizing it.
There's a lot of value to the things that we experience. And honestly, every once in a while, as like a little cathartic exercise, I like to certainly go back and not reminisce, but like consider all of the things that went horribly wrong that got me to this point today, right? Yeah. So like, because unfortunately, I mean, maybe there are some people out there that have had nothing but muffin baskets and kitten kisses, and like they're just blessed with good luck. I mean, maybe that has just been their life. And you know what? For those people, I am envious. I'm envious to the nth degree. Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that hasn't been my world. And so I do think that like in those moments of difficulty and trial, when you're kind of like dealing with it, it's so hard to find the silver lining. So every once in a while, I do like kind of going backwards and chaining all the negative things that like had to happen for me to get to that next spot, for me to be in this different territory, for me to be at this other company, for me to get this other experience, which all lend itself to me doing this thing. So perhaps in some weird way, like you said, you know, I learned that you don't get to pick the road ahead, right?
Yeah.
People don't have to be nice to you. They don't have to help you. Just because you have a thought or an idea doesn't necessarily mean it's going to become anything. So
correct.
I accept that at this point. With that said, I do think that the structuring, the planning, the consideration of not just the moving part to success, but the moving part in all the things that break and fall off as it goes down the road, the consideration of all of those experiences where the wheel fell off, I think that's the win, right? Is you're able to be just way more prepared. And so now for you in the skydiving element, like they taught you about the wheels falling off before you got to jump out of the plane, right?
Yeah.
If those lines got tangled, here's what you're going to do. So, you know, do you still panic when it happens? Like probably a little bit. Like I think I would, right? But
yeah, I would question, what am I doing? Like, oh no, wait, oh my God, I have to think back. What am I supposed to learn here?
So there's actually one of my wife's professors back in the day, he has this expression that he always uses. And it's that in an event of an emergency, you fall back to your education. Don't rise to the occasion. Fall back to your education. You know, we don't need people trying new things when things are like falling apart. We need you to actually fall back to the stuff that we taught you, right? So you've got this skill set. You've got this thing where like you were given the problems in advance, right? To be able to learn from where it doesn't
Yeah.
typically happen in business.
No, and I've actually never related where I'm at today and what I've learned and like the risk and the preparation and how you have to kind of think forward. You have to be prepared first in order to be prepared for like failures and stuff. I didn't realize until now that probably that skydiving early on helped actually prepare me for those different failures in life. I never really thought about it. Like, and it's amazing, like talking through this.
There's an expression. So I went skydiving one time, and then I was like, I'm going to do this forever, right? Like I was going to go get certified and stuff, and I never did. I just never got around to it. But there was something that I had either read or heard where they were like, you should pack your own chute, and it was this metaphor for like making sure that like you take care of the delicate act of the thing that is actually going to keep you alive, right? So my question is, did you used to pack your own chute?
It's funny that you actually bring that up. So I have learned how to pack my own chute. I used to pack my own chute at times, but I also would trust others. So I used to have a packer. So like in the hangar, after a jump, you would partner up with a packer. And I had some very close relationships with my packers or some of my closest friends. So I would literally pay them to pack my chute for me. And so I would pay them, I would tip them out at the end of the day. They'd pack my chute because now my safety was in their hands and they felt a sense of responsibility to me and all the people they were packing for. And so it actually created almost a teamwork as well. So you learn even teamwork from being in sports, being on teams, being in debate teams, whatever it might be, to also in this world where I was very dependent on them to save my life and make sure my parachute would open. And so I packed sometimes, but most of the times I would pay someone to pack my parachute.
That's intense. Like that's an intense level of delegation, right?
I trusted them for sure.
Because never had I needed to put such a level of confidence in something so sensitive in my life. Like you had people that you were tipping out or paying out or whatever it was.
Yeah. And it wasn't much.
To do something that the consequence of them either being lackadaisical or, having a bad day.
Getting it wrong.
That changes everything about your world.
Yeah.
So that's, again, I think that I'll be honest, like as we started this podcast, because we didn't rehearse, this isn't rehearsed. So when we started this and then you went down the path of like the skydiving, which I knew that you had done skydiving, but in sort of recounting the story, my immediate reaction was I was like, oh man, like that's crazy. But as you start to think about the fundamental things that you learn from that experience, holy shit, like you can't pay for education that way.
No, it's definitely helped shape who I am. And I will say, we're going on 20 plus 22, 23 years ago of when I started. I'm looking at the calendar and the date of it's 2026. And when did I start this? But some of those people that I used to skydive with are still my best friends. They're still the closest people. They're the ones that I would call. If I was in jail, who do you call, right? Those people. That created a different sense of community because we all had risk that was going on, but we also had to make sure we always looked out for each other. So we were always there for one another. And we had unfortunate situations where there was injuries, there was deaths that happened throughout, but it was about how do you also come together? So you think about it in like a professional business world. How do you come together when you have a failure? How do you come together when there's something that you're like, this is going to really hurt us, where I have like risk that's happening? What do you have to do? You look to the people that are with you and you look to their advice and you make sure that everyone has that voice. Everyone has a say because you need to be able to connect on thinking together. But I'm going to turn this around really quickly, Jeff, because I know we started talking about like, what would we tell? And I think that like the story that we're telling here is defining what our younger self was, which has helped us grow to who we are. But there's definitely some things that once I truly got into the professional world, I did a lot of things wrong because I thought that they were right for me. And there's some things that I would have totally, if I had gone back, this is my post skydiving years, and I could like tell myself something like, what would be my advice? What would be my truths that I would say? I think there's some key things that I think I've learned through the years from my today self versus my younger self. Now, if I listen to the advice that I'd be giving myself, that's a totally different situation. But I'll get into mine, but I want to in a minute, but I want to know, like, Jeff, if you were to go back, because you've learned a lot, you've grown so much through these years. If you could have given advice to that 20-year-old that was buying the condo and had to get all these different things perfect, what advice would you give yourself then? Your top 3.
I would say that my number 1 would be the insecurities that echo in the back of your head. Nobody else is really giving like much consideration to. Like they're not thinking what you're thinking.
No one gives 2 shits.
So like they don't give 2 shits. Like I think that we build narratives in our own heads that are detrimental. Right. I think they create a lot of complication and a lot of uncertainty and I think they contradict the reality of the space that we're in. And I think we believe when we hear that thing, when we hear those voices, if you will, we believe that everyone else around us is also thinking the same thing. And this is kind of like a brutal truth. You're probably not that important. They're probably not thinking about you that much. And so, by stripping away that layer of concern, I think it would have opened up maybe more opportunity to participate. But your insecurities that you have in your head are way greater than anyone's even thinking about you.
Your voice matters. So even if you also have, I think, the insecurities of like what you're thinking, like what you might have said, speak up. Like one thing that I think I would have told my younger self for sure is like, doesn't matter how old you are. You could be 22, 23, 73. Everyone's voice matters and people want to hear what you're saying. And I think that's something that I used to shy away from, of not speaking up. Like I had these ideas in my head, but I would be afraid to sometimes share them. And I think that everyone's voice matters.
So let's dig into that for just a moment. Like, why do you think you shied away from it? Because I think a lot of people, myself included, have experienced it, right? Where you're sitting in a room and you're thinking the thing, and then you pause, right? You have that momentary hesitation. And then what usually happens is someone else in the room says it. And then you're like, shit, I should have said that, right? So what is it, as you think about that, as you reflect back, why do you think you hesitate? Why do you think that you would pause?
I used to think I'd come across not clean or professional and I might sound stupid. And so I'd embarrass myself with what I might also be saying. So I was like, is this the right thing? I'd be questioning it. So I never said it. I even think like in conferences, like, when like you have a keynote speaker and like some people are like, I'm like, man, that's awesome that this person just asked this keynote speaker a question and grabbed the microphone in front of like 1,000 people in here. There's always questions I have, but I never like raise my hand to ask it.
I think for me, it was a matter of like, I would pause because I didn't feel like I had clarity. I felt like maybe I was only looking at it from one perspective and I didn't have enough like experience or information that would validate what the response was or what the comment was. And that like, that would somehow, by virtue of, it would almost sort of show my inexperience. It would show my lack of understanding. It would show that I didn't deserve to be in that room.
Didn't have the confidence. You didn't know what you were saying. I think that's like summarizes it perfect. Which now I'm like, okay, my word of the year is being curious. So like, be curious enough to ask the questions. Like, no question is a stupid question. We've heard that for years and years and years. So I definitely make sure I ask it, even if I'm not 100% sure. Or I also ask like, can you guys be a little bit more clear so I can understand this? Because I have this question, but maybe I'm not understanding it wholeheartedly of what you're trying to say. So I'll try to reframe what my question might be to get a little bit more clarity as well.
And just as like a little like additional like recommendation, right? Because people are obviously, if they're listening to this particular episode, maybe they're in a similar circumstance. They're dealing with that either imposter syndrome or they're inexperienced and they're trying to sort out what it is they're doing. Here's the one thing I'll say about questions. You're right. There are no stupid questions. However, there sometimes are empty questions. So what I think that we need to do is, if we want to participate, and I think we all should, because I think that everyone's participation is what makes organizations and offers more valuable and all the things. I truly believe that. I think that ask the question when you understand the question. Right?
Yes.
To ask a question based off of what ChatGPT said at this point, or to ask a question because that is just a series of questions. You're like, how, what, when, where, why? I'm just going to go through and ask why. Like, that doesn't typically yield a good outcome, because if you don't understand the question you're asking, it doesn't matter what the response is. That response is going to be so foreign, it won't help you get to the next step. So I would say,
no, you do need to understand. I think that's where I think getting clarity to your question to ask.
Yeah.
Clarity, and then ask the question. Or if you do feel very confident in it, just ask the question.
Yeah.
Ask it, or speak up, or state your opinion on what the topic might be.
Yeah. So what's another truth or bit of advice that you'd give to your younger self?
Okay, there's definitely one that is probably my number one. So early on in my career, and I should say it's probably even been up till later, I was probably working 70 to 80 hours a week. Completely, because I thought that the amount of work and time that I spent showed that this is going to make me better. I'm going to be like everyone's going to see me as like the hardest worker, and this presents me well. Okay. Lesson, it does not.
They're like, why is it taking her so long?
Work smarter, not harder, right? Right. Work smarter, not harder. Key thing. But it made me realize you have to have that work-life balance, work-life integration. And it's such a critical part of who we should be. You do not need to work from 6 a.m. till 9 o'clock at night. You have to have that, the delta of being able to go out for cocktails with your friends or dinner or have a life. And I find so many people, even now, that are in their 20s and even early 30s, and they just think that they need to be at work all the time. And I think you have to create that boundary of personal and professional, because it will help you later on.
I feel like you're speaking directly to me at this point.
20s, okay, 30s, Erin, 40s, we're all there.
That's amazing. I love it. I think
Jeff, you should create boundaries in your work.
It's true.
You do a good
it's
job
true.
For the most part.
I'm trying. I try every day. I try every day. One of the other things that I think I would share with myself is, and because I just think this took too long. I think this took too long for me to sort out. And I don't know that I would have listened, just for the record. But I think another thing I would have told myself is that the things that you want are independent of what your environment needs. So it doesn't matter. I did learn a lot about the ecosystem. I learned a lot about org charts. I learned a lot about, promotions. I learned a lot about human resources and the intricacies and the offers and the benefits and all the things. I learned how to take advantage of a lot of things at a very young age, and to utilize those things and leverage them up so that way I can grow my career. I definitely was able to get myself into a lot of positions. It didn't necessarily it didn't come without an awful lot of concern, a lot of worry, and a lot of effort that had me spinning my tires unnecessarily and not really getting far enough. I think the amount of energy I expended against what the outcome was, the relationship was just not valued. And so with that said, you can try to force the road ahead as much as you'd like, but when that road takes a left, guess what? You're either taking a left with it or you're going off the road. And so
what's your recommendation there? What would you tell yourself not to spend as much time on the org charts, the understanding the benefits, or would it be pick it and just go?
I think I would prioritize the needs of the environment before I prioritize the wants of myself. Because if I understand the needs of the environment better, I can now move through that space with greater ease. I can probably get to my wants a lot faster. But because I was looking at what it is that I wanted and then trying to because in your 20s, like I said, like I didn't want to say that I didn't know something, right? Like young people tend to know it all, if you will. And so I know that I did, right? I tried to, that was my faking it till I made it, right? It was sort of, being able to come to the environment with like, oh, I know how this is going to work out. Like it's so predictable. Like I'm going to be able to make this happen. And that's not how it works. So I think if I was able to give my younger self advice, right, it's that the environment doesn't bend to you, you bend to the environment. And I think that
I think that's great.
The more you understand about the space, I think the more valuable you are, the more impact you can have, the more interaction and engagement you can produce, the more collaboration will exist, the more network you build, you'll get what you want. You just have to do it through what the environment needs.
I think that goes to my next one because I love that because I think that you do need to be super cognizant of it, of the environment around you. And one of the other lessons, which I did do pretty good, but I will always recommend to other people, is if there's an opportunity that presents itself through work in your career, don't say no, just go and do it. So surround yourself with the environment, surround yourself with the people. And when you take the opportunities, you're learning more about yourself, even if you don't feel comfortable, even if you're not like confident in, I don't know what this opportunity is or like how I can help. You will learn, you will grow. And I think that opportunity can help you grow as an individual, as a person, and it's going to open up the door for networking across the board. So I would definitely say like, don't ever say no to the opportunity unless it's a really bad opportunity and they're trying to take you somewhere else. And like,
right.
Hey, right. Erin, I want you to do this and sell this, but can you smuggle it from Vancouver, like into Canada from like, no, I'm not going to do that. You got to be smart about the opportunity.
There's an expression that someone taught me. This woman doesn't even realize that I lived my life off of this lesson that she shared with me. So I was working at, it's now Verizon Wireless, but it was pre all those things, right? And her name was Priscilla, and she was probably 20 years older than me or so. I was in tech support, and she had shared with me, she said, at every moment in your life, you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
I love that.
So it wasn't that like, everything happens for a reason, because I hated feeling like I had no control. But at every moment in your life, you've made a decision to be someplace. And it's in that moment, you're going to have a result. It may be positive, maybe negative, but it's in that experience you will be better tomorrow than you were today.
Completely.
And so like that was such a huge nugget of wisdom that I got shared when I was in my early 20s that like, I don't know if I really appreciated its like magnitude at the moment, but certainly as I got older and as I had more experiences and as I do that sort of exercise where I look back and like appreciate the fact that like that thing had to go wrong for me to end up in this place to have this next conversation, like it's probably one of the more true pearls of wisdom I've ever gotten in my entire life.
I love this. Pearls of wisdom from Priscilla. Priscilla, where are you at in this world right now?
My gosh,
all
I don't even know.
Say is like, Priscilla, 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 and pull out like the Elvis, but I don't do a good Elvis impersonation. But I think that statement, I'll get into it later, not on this episode, but I think that resonates so much more with me through so many different things. You're exactly where you need to be in the right place at the right time. Yeah. And there's a lot that I can unpack with that. We're going to go into a therapy session here, Jeff, but not today. We're going to let it go to a different
Save it for another episode.
I'm going to save that one for a whole nother episode. I do have one last thing, which is like a fun, more like, which I think that everyone needs to hear. And I don't know about you, but like when I was in my 20s and 30s, and maybe it's also because I didn't have all of the funds, but I feel like your money, you can do trips and stuff with what you have. I did not take the vacations that I should have. And I got like, hey, you want to go to London for a weekend? Like, you're 28 years old. Sure. Well, like that would be fun. I wish I said yes to those opportunities and I didn't. So I will tell people, if I went back in time, I would tell my younger self and people right now, which I don't know if people right now have a problem with not taking a vacation, but I would definitely say, find time, take the vacation, go have fun.
Yeah, go travel for sure.
I don't know. Did you take a lot of vacations?
So I had a few different moments in time, right? So I had times when there was like dedicated, committed time that you had to take off. And so I did. I took different vacations, cruises or whatever. So I got to see a lot of different places. But then I also worked for companies who had unlimited vacation time, which is a fascinating behavioral experience. It's
you don't take it.
People don't tend to take vacation. Yeah, it's like, it's twisted. But yeah, so I did used to do some travel. And then obviously as you get older, like you just start really appreciating the value of learning from different cultures, different environments, different things. So I'm with you. I think that people should definitely take the time that they get. My third, I'm going to cheat a little bit. My third is actually something I learned about myself when I was really young. And I think that it is something that really kept me pretty focused. And I think it's worth noting because I think others might benefit from it. So here's what it was. I couldn't have been very old, maybe like 10 years old or something. And what I realized is if I compete on a global stage, there will always be someone who is faster, smarter, stronger, more, whatever. But if I compete with myself on a daily basis, there's a really good chance that on any one of those things, I can actually see success or feel success tomorrow. And so instead of me being worried about what the person next to me was doing, whether that be through fitness, whether it be through sports, whether it be through profession, whether it be whatever, I would certainly use people as benchmarks. Don't get me wrong. I'd be like, oh, like this is where they are. I would like to see myself get, into that space with whatever that was. But in order for me to get there, I would compete with myself on a regular basis. And I think that creates a really healthy scenario for individuals. I know that at least it did for me, but I think today with like the way that people use social media, I think with the way that people have so many comparisons to the people around them and to the worlds around them, I think that, if you find yourself in these situations where you are not happy with where you're at, I think maybe it's worth just asking yourself who you're comparing to that is the cause of that unhappiness. Because if you look at where you were yesterday and you look where you are today, if you're not in a better spot, unfortunately, lines don't always go up and to the right. Maybe it's a small step back for you to step forward. But if you're in this feeling because you're looking at someone else next to you and you perceive them to have such an easier time and easier success and easier whatever, number one, it's likely not the story. And number two, they're on a different journey than you are. So run your race, not someone else's.
I think that's such a great lesson, and one we don't necessarily think about when we're in our 20s and 30s.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes our 40s.
Oh, for sure. and beyond.
And beyond. Oh, yeah, exactly. But I mean, it is. You got to run your own race, and you're only competing with yourself. Don't put yourself up against others. Compete with you. If you know that you had a great day, you're winning. And you know what? Sometimes we're going to, we might trip before we get to the finish line on some days. And that's okay because you're going to get back up. And the next day you're going to finish and you're going to finish faster and stronger. So I absolutely love that. I think that's such a key thing to be aware of and such a great lesson for so many.
The thing I love about our conversations, Erin, is that they always sort of come back to the same thing. It's the gap between like where you are and where you're trying to go. And today, I'm so happy that we were able to make this like so personal. I'll be honest, it's out of my comfort zone. But I do feel like for some odd reason, I feel like it's completely natural and safe to do this with you. So thank you so much for that. If this conversation has reminded you, anyone who's listening, of a version of yourself that you've haven't thought about for a while, sit with that. Maybe there's something there that's worth paying attention to. And if you know someone who's in the middle of trying to figure it out right now, send this to them. Not as advice, but maybe just as company.
I mean, so true. And I will say, I've been seeing some more posts on LinkedIn about like what are people telling their younger self. So like copy this to us, at us. We would love to kind of be a part of it and the conversation. So we'd love to kind of see all the different posts on LinkedIn because I find it so interesting and I'm always learning more things. And it's good to share with my nieces, my nephews, my friends' kids, because I'm at the stage where my friends' kids are in their 20s and figuring this out and don't listen to anyone except for themselves. So this is good. But honestly, for all of you that are listening to Highly Adaptive right now, this is really where leaders stop reacting and we all start adapting and we start learning from the lessons that we should have learned 20 years ago. So next week, you guys will be back for another conversation. And we cannot wait to kind of chat with you then. So listen in and feel free to share, and we'll chat with you this next week.
Awesome. All right, Erin, thank you so much. Can't wait for the next one.
Let's do it.
Big thanks to Allied Insight, not just our sponsor, but an industry leader and preferred marketing partner to staffing and consulting businesses nationwide. If your firm is looking for expert-level support that goes beyond the logo, you know where to go, alliedinsight.com. If this episode helped you, share with your friends and colleagues and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify or wherever you listen to podcasts. While you're there, consider leaving us a review, and when you're ready for more industry insights, articles, case studies, and more, find it on allthingsstaffing.com. This episode was produced and edited by Allied Insight and the music provided by Home Music Stock. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.